All right, let's jump right into this because what we're looking at today is an absolutely fascinating moment where sports and culture just completely collided in real time. We are going back to August 3, 2026 in Minneapolis. Now, on paper, this was just a standard, regular season matchup between the Indiana Fever and the Minnesota Lynx at the Target Center. But, well, as the evening unfolded, this game transformed from a simple sporting event into a massive cultural flashpoint. We're going to break down exactly what happened, step by step, using the primary accounts from that very night.
And that brings us to the core question for this explainer. How exactly does a tiny 11 by 17-inch piece of cardboard manage to bring America's culture war directly into the stands of a professional basketball game? You know, it's a story about a former collegiate swimmer, an arena staffer, and a message that just absolutely hijacked the headlines. To really understand the sheer scale of the backlash, we've got to look at the ingredients that created this perfect storm.
Part 1. A flashpoint in women's sports.
To really grasp the gravity of this incident, we need to look at the key players whose paths crossed that night. First up, you have Sophie Cunningham, the Indiana Fever guard who had recently found herself right at the center of a massive media storm. Then there's Riley Gaines, a former NCAA swimmer who's become a highly visible activist against the inclusion of transgender women in women's sports. Over on the opposing sideline, we have Cheryl Reeve, the head coach of the Minnesota Lynx. And finally, the venue itself, the Target Center in Minneapolis, complete with its own specific arena policies and its own staff. The convergence of these four elements, that is exactly what sparked the controversy.
Part 2. The pre-game context. So, to truly understand what happened in the stands, we kind of have to zoom out for a second. This story actually began weeks before tip-off, fueled by a deeply polarizing national debate. Let's just walk through the timeline. The escalation started a few weeks prior when ESPN published a profile on Sophie Cunningham. In that interview, Cunningham publicly stated her belief that women's sports should be reserved for biological women. Boom! That immediately made her a central figure in this ongoing cultural debate. Over the following days, the controversy literally followed the Fever on the road. Rallies and counter-protests were held outside arenas in Seattle and Portland, building up a highly charged atmosphere. By the time August 3rd arrived in Minneapolis, rallies were already planned right outside the Target Center.
The really crucial piece of context here is how Cunningham reacted to all this mounting pressure. Earlier in the week, she didn't back down. She remained totally defiant, stating, "I think it's people just practicing their rights of freedom of speech. Props to everyone who is able to be confident and be bold and courageous enough to speak their truths." That unwavering stance set the ultimate stage for the tense atmosphere heading into the Minneapolis game.
Part 3. The Target Center confrontation. Let's zoom right in on game day and see exactly what went down inside the building. Activist Riley Gaines arrived at the arena about 20 minutes before tip-off, and according to her, she did this on the advice of her security team just to avoid a hostile crowd that had gathered outside. Once she was safely inside the arena and in her seat, Gaines displayed her sign. The text was incredibly brief. It simply read, "Sophie, thank you, a girl mom." She was there specifically to show support for Cunningham's recent public statements. Now, according to Gaines's own account, here are the specific mechanics of what happened next. First, an arena staffer dressed in official black clothing pointed at her and mouthed the words, "Put your sign down." Second, when Gaines refused to lower the placard, the staffer physically approached her seat. And third, and guys, this is the detail that ignited the online firestorm, Gaines claims the staffer specifically told her the problem was the name written on the sign, Sophie Cunningham. Gaines immediately defended herself, grounding her argument in the cold, hard reality of the arena's own rules. As she later stated, "I checked all the sign policies before I went in there. I made sure it was like 11 by 17. That's the sign size you could have. So I got a ruler out. You better believe I was measuring it." She argued that the sign was completely unoffensive and strictly adhered to the permitted size guidelines of the Target Center.
Part 4. A tale of two messages.
You see, this incident didn't happen in a vacuum. It happened against a backdrop of highly visible opposing messages inside the exact same arena. What really stands out here is the stark visual contrast. On one hand, you've got Riley Gaines being told to lower her 11 by 17-inch sign supporting Cunningham in the stands. On the other hand, you have Lynx head coach Cheryl Reeve, who was permitted to wear a shirt reading "Trans Kids Belong" on the sideline throughout the entire game. In fact, the ESPN broadcast even highlighted Reeve's shirt during the game. This clash became the absolute core of the friction, leading to immediate accusations of a double standard and how messages were being policed in the arena.
Jennifer Say, the founder of XXX Athletics, was actually at the game and posted about the confrontation.
pointing out that Gaines was told to lower the sign simply because it had a name on it. Gaines then responded directly to Say's post with this: "There were no fewer than 1,000 signs in the arena, most with trans paraphernalia. The only person who was told to put her sign down by WNBA officials was me. Wonder why?" She directly challenged the selective enforcement of the arena's rules.
Meanwhile, down on the court, the athletes were just trying to navigate this heavily scrutinized environment. Following the Fever's 108-100 loss, superstar Caitlin Clark was asked about the whole situation. She offered a pretty terse deflection, stating, "I think for us, it's not really a discussion we really have in our locker room. Our focus is on basketball." And when a reporter tried to follow up, Clark shut it down, making it perfectly clear that while the outside world was fiercely debating, the athletes were strictly focused on the sport itself.
Part 5. Post-game reactions and fallout.
We need to zoom back out to look at the immediate aftermath of the buzzer and how this single, brief incident echoed across social media. Despite the tension during the game, a notable moment of solidarity actually occurred afterward. Sophie Cunningham, Riley Gaines, and Jennifer Say posed together for a photo. And in it, Cunningham herself is holding the very 11 by 17-inch sign that Gaines was instructed to put down. Posting the photo, Jennifer Say promised that the group would, quote, "keep showing up for Cunningham."
So the takeaway here is how perfectly the reaction inside the arena mirrored our deeply divided national audience. Inside the Target Center, Cunningham was loudly booed by some fans. Gaines reported facing hostility from some attendees, yet she also noted that families and young girls actually formed a photo line near her seat to thank her and take pictures. Online, the reaction was just as split. Some mocked Cunningham in the group, with one viral comment reading, "All that just to score 3 points." Conversely, there was an enormous outpouring of strong online support, echoing the sentiment that women's sports should be for biological women, a complete fracture of public opinion.
And yet, despite the viral nature of this debate, the photo, the quotes, and the massive online fallout, the WNBA, the Indiana Fever, and the Minnesota Lynx have not issued an official statement regarding the specific incident with the arena staffer. Total silence from the organizations involved.
Which leaves us with this final, incredibly provocative thought. When the arena inevitably becomes a battleground for these larger cultural debates, where exactly does a league draw the line between standard fan cheering and political activism? Was this just an overstepping staffer or a genuine double standard? As sports leagues continue to struggle with navigating free speech in the modern era, this brief incident in Minneapolis proves that what happens in the stands is now just as intensely watched as what happens on the court. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. I really hope it gave you a clearer look at how this fascinating story unfolded.